Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm very excited about today's topic. So what we're looking at today is facilitating a discussion panel where we're talking about how we balance on HBCU campus, maintaining a safe environment for our students while also ensuring that we're being an integral part of the communities that we serve. We want to make sure that we have an open and inclusive and inviting campus, but at the same time, we don't want to let our safeguards down. We want to make sure our priority is protected to students who are members of our community. And that's certainly a balancing act. This is not, it's very difficult to maintain that balance. We don't want to compromise safety, but we do want to be an open and inclusive community and part of the community that we serve. So what we've got today is we've got some experts from our HBCU community who are going to be sharing with us some of the strategies that they've used to ensure that they are maintaining that balance. They're certainly very well respected authorities, well known in the campus law enforcement community. And we're glad to have them with us today. Not only for HBCUs, but we certainly think it's something that also applies to all our campuses. We'll do some very quick introductions. So my name is Jack Mormon. I'm a retired chief from North Carolina State University Police Department, two-time iClear board member. After I retired from NC State, I spent a year at North Carolina A&T University in Greensboro as the interim associate vice chancellor of public safety and chief of police. So that was where I was first introduced to the HBCU LEA and had the experience of working in an HBCU environment. This is a great association and certainly very glad to be a part of this webinar today. I will serve as the moderator for today's panel and want to do some quick introductions. First, we have Chief Deborah Williams with us. Chief Williams is the Chief of Police for Clark Atlanta University, and Chief Williams is also the president of the HBCU LEA and also iClear board member. Chief Williams, would you take a couple of minutes and introduce yourself?
Great. Thank you, Jack. I think you just did that. Again, I'm Deborah Williams, the Chief of Police and Associate Vice President for Clark Atlanta University, as well as the HBCU LEA President and also an iClear board member. Again, thank you for having this, for giving us this opportunity to talk about what's going on around our campuses, because as you said, it's not only affects HBCUs, but it affects us all. So again, thank you for this opportunity.
All right. Next, we have Chief Jermaine Cherry, and Chief Cherry is the Associate Vice Chancellor of Public Safety and Chief of Police at North Carolina A&T University. I've certainly had the pleasure of working with him a number of times in the past. Chief Cherry?
Yes. Well, first of all, I want to thank you, and I also want to thank CriticalArc for just hosting this very, very important webinar. Yes, I do serve as Chief of Police here at North Carolina A&T State University out of Greensboro, North Carolina, currently the largest HBCU in the nation. And so I'm just very excited about this opportunity to share what I have learned, what we have learned, and you know what, to also learn from you, because we are here working together, all of us bringing our knowledge and tools to the table to make sure that we keep our community safe. So thanks again, Jack, and I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Chief Cherry. So, and finally on our panel, we have Chief Marcus Lyles. Chief Lyles is the Executive Director of Public Safety and Chief of Police for Howard University. Chief Lyles, if you would share a little about yourself.
Thank you, Jack. First and foremost, I'd like to thank iClear, HBCU LEA, and CriticalArc for taking the time on such an important topic to provide space in which we can communicate with each other. My name is Marcus Lyles, and I serve as Howard University's Chief of Police, and I have for the last 5 years. We're the Mecca, sitting in the heart of Washington, D.C. We have 12,000 students, 3,000 faculty and staff, 256 acres across the metropolitan area in Washington, D.C. and Maryland. It's a pleasure to meet you all, and I look forward to a vibrant discussion. Thank you.
All right, excellent. So again, thanks to the three of you for taking time out of your day to join us. I know you have a lot of expertise, a lot of experience in this area, and I know it'll be a great benefit. And as you all mentioned, this is certainly an ongoing discussion. We want to make sure that we're also open to questions from our audience. So what we're going to ask you to do is throughout the event, if you do have any questions, put them in the chat box. I'll come back at the end and time permitting get to any questions that you may have asked and present those questions to our panelists. Also want to thank Chief Williams, Chief Lyles, Chief Cherry, your work for coordinating this and for everything that the HBCU LEA does. I know it's a great organization, does a lot for the HBCU law enforcement community, and also to ICLEA, and finally for CriticalArc for putting this on. As a previous CriticalArc customer and consultant, I certainly appreciate how they give back in the way that they take the initiative to make sure they are doing their part, not just as a vendor, but as someone who's an integral part of the campus community. So without any further delay, I'll get into our questions. So the first question is, what is your institution's stance on remaining open and to the public, while at the same time making sure that your students are safe, but allowing for non-students, the local community, to be a part of your campus?
Well, I guess I'll go first on that question. Thanks for that question. And as you know, with all of our campus, though, especially those are what we consider in an open area. And that's one of the things that we always do here. We try to make sure that we're proactive with getting the message out that Clark Atlanta University is an open campus. And as for those that are not familiar with Clark Atlanta University sits within on the platform of what we call the Atlanta University Center Consortium, which is the oldest African-American consortium in the world, which consists of not only Clark Atlanta University, but Morehouse School of Medicine, and Spelman College, as well as ITC. So because we're so open for all of those other universities and colleges, we're open for the community as well. So safety is always our number one concern because we are not gated. Some of the schools are, but Clark Atlanta University, it is an open campus. So we're always concerned about the openness of our campus and the safety of our students, faculty, and staff, because we have public right-of-ways coming through our campus, as well as private businesses and private homeowners that's connected to parts of our campuses. So when we talk about how do we secure our campus better, we have to always take into consideration that we share that space with others as well. But we're always looking at ways on securing our campuses, not only with gated areas, but increasing our police presence as well, by making sure our students, as they're walking to and from, that they see the high visibility of our officers and being proactive in everything with our communication to our community when it comes to their safety.
Thank you, Chief Williams. I'll chime in from North Carolina A&T's standpoint. North Carolina A&T is a part of what is called the UNC system here in North Carolina. And by virtue of this, it is considered a state institution because we receive tax dollars and therefore are governed by state law. Now, because of this, our campus is open for public use, okay? And so another thing that we are a land grant institution that has been designated by the state legislature to receive the benefits of the Morrill Act of 1862, and I believe of 1890, and I think 1994 as well. What this does for us is we have a responsibility to be a readily available, research-based institution, educational resource with goals of improving the lives of the community that is around us and within the state of North Carolina. And so by virtue of all of these things, we are an open institution and have a responsibility to our community, all right? Now, the $1,000 question is, how do we do that and at the same time keep our community safe? And so we deploy a wide array or wide spectrum of measures in order to do that. Some of those measures include assessments and those things. So we'll get into a little bit more of that later on. But absolutely, we're an open campus and we deploy certain type of tactics and measures to make sure that even though we're open, we maintain a safe community for everyone.
Thank you, Chief Cherry. Just as a follow-up, so Howard University is an open campus as well. We do not have gates around our campus. And if you ask me, it's all about finding the balance, right? Part of our mission is to serve. It's to not build blocks, not to have barricades, but essentially to build bridges. And we do that within our community. Does it cause safety issues from time to time, being open? That's part of the balance in which we have to account for. But when we go back to our mission and serving others and being partners and within our community, that's paramount for us. We bring in community members for classes and certifications and mentor events, and we bring them into our libraries and we share space where we can. I think outside of the safety conversation, understanding your university's mission is a great way to start. And then you build mitigation plans, procedures around that to ensure that there is a level of safety. Washington, D.C. Currently is in the midst of a crime crisis. I haven't seen anything like it since, over the last 15, 20 years, and I'm a Washingtonian. It's disturbing what we're seeing, and you're seeing many of the crime stats nationally in urban areas at a heightened level. Currently, violent crime in Washington, D.C. is up 40% year versus year. Theft of autos is up 95%. We're seeing armed carjackings, things of that nature. So it presents unique challenges, but we don't lose the fact that our mission is to serve and be a beacon within our community.
Thank you all for your responses to that question. And Chief Lyles, your last part of that response actually leads directly into my next question. So although we certainly represent, or each of you represent, a variety of institutions, whether public, private, as Chief Cherry articulated, the nuances of a land-grant institution, one thing certainly all of your institutions have in common, as do many of our HBCUs, is they're located in urban environments. So we're talking about, I've been to each of your campuses, downtown Washington, D.C., downtown Atlanta, Greensboro, North Carolina. So all of you are in urban environments, which adds another layer to it. And we know we don't want the institutions to look like prisons or to be something that's kind of standoffish to the community. But what do you do to prevent that crime that often occurs in urban areas, as Chief Lyles described, from spilling over into your campus?
Yes, I can go first on this one since Chief Williams went first last time. So North Carolina A&T is actually located in an urban urban setting in East Greensboro, North Carolina. The university sits on about 103 acres of land, and it boasts about 14,000, just under 14,000 students, about 3,000 faculty and staff. And so the question is, what do we do? How do we maintain an open, vibrant campus, healthy campus, while at the same time making sure that we keep it safe? And so we do our very best to keep our campus safe by deploying several things. One thing is education, educated policing. One is the use of technology, and one is effective community partnerships. And so we hang our hat on those three notions. Now, when I say educated or targeted policing, every month we produce what is called a monthly crime analysis. And what this analysis does for us is it points out just basically our activity. It points out possibly our trouble areas throughout the campus, throughout our footprint. And it allows us to take our resources, right, and place them in the place that gives us the most challenge. And so we can target issues a lot more effectively if we know exactly how we're going to do it. So it's sort of like precision policing. And so another thing we do is we assess our high value target areas, or those places that is most frequented by our students and the campus community. On our campus, it's absolutely our student center. And so what we did, for example, is we deployed a strategy where we increased presence at those high value target areas. All right. Another thing we did was we began to restrict access to those spaces at a certain period of time. All right. So there's a notion that because we are a state institution, that individuals can come on the campus 24 hours a day and do whatever they want to do. That's not true. They can come on the campus during normal business hours, okay? And if we see the need to restrict access after normal business hours for safety reasons, we do have the authority to do so long as we can do it effectively. And so that's what we do. So at about 8 p.m. nightly, we begin to restrict access to certain parts of campus that has been identified as high value targets. All right. And another thing we do is we also deploy what we call active presence. So it's not enough just to bolster your presence, but you have to have active presence. And so at our student center, after hours, we began to take a look at individuals who are displaying suspicious behaviors. Okay, and we ask them for their one card. If you are a student, you can be here after hours. If you're not, you cannot. And so when I take a look at our analysis, one of the things that I've noticed that since we have put these measures in place, since we have deployed targeted policing, since we have increased our presence, since we have deployed restrictions to certain areas on campus after hours, our number of incidents have plummeted by about 35% since this went into place. And so we are seeing the fruits of those labors, and we're very happy about that. We also utilize technology. We have multiple forward-facing platforms like Flock, license plate readers throughout the campus. We work with our access control things. We also have the use of a drone. We stood up the drone program, the first of its kind in the UNC system. And we also use our mobile safe app. So that's from a technology standpoint. And then finally, community partnerships. Community partnerships. They're very, very critical. And so those are the three areas we focus on: targeted policing, use of technology, and effective and strong community partnerships.
Great. Chief Lau, you want to go? Or you?
Absolutely, Chief Williams. I'll piggyback on Chief Cherry just a bit. So I shared some statistics, kind of what we're facing in DC. As it relates to Howard University and our crime stats, year versus year, we're down 45%. And it's because of a number of factors. Although we're not immune to bad actors coming on to our campus, we've had an incident or two. The reality is we have to be right every day. And I share that with our team. You have to come in and do your best and get it right every day. And that's the uphill challenge that I know we all face. Resources are never enough. I know with the chiefs on the call, you always need more resources. You need more vehicles. You need more a larger force. I think that's a national issue. both on campuses, local municipalities, and federal. I'm looking for force multipliers, right? Because I can't grow my force quickly enough. So what have we invested in? What have we done? We had a strategic initiative to upgrade our technology. Over the last year, we've installed well over 1,000 cameras. And I thank the administration for that investment. And we're doubling down this year. We'll install another 1,000 cameras, both internal and external. I think technology is so important in today's climate. We're looking for force multipliers in AI and robots. We want to be innovative and creative. There are grants out there. We've received 2 grants, one through the Department of Education and another through a local city grant, in which we'll have traffic enforcement and speedometer, slowing down traffic, and vehicle cameras. We have case managers that we will be hiring through the Department of Education. We're able to hire 3 case managers that will deal with mental health concerns, because I know we're all seeing a mental health crisis as well. I sit on a BIT team, behavioral intervention team, and 4 years ago, we may have had 1 or 2 new cases a week. Well, now we're seeing that triple. And I know many of us are seeing that. So now it's not an armed officer or sworn officer that's being dispatched to every incident. Like Chief Cherry said, we're more precise in the resources that we are providing to our community. And that's given us another resource. Training is very important. We meet students, faculty, and staff where they are. We'll go in, we'll have lunch with them. We call it chat and choose. Every month, we go in and we sit down and we talk about topics and we listen. We go into resident halls, right? We pick a resident hall or 2 every month in which we have safety 101 discussions, right? When you're headed to your internship, when you're traversing the city, when you're on the metro, when you're on the bus, what are safe things, best practices that you can use in your arsenal? We're empowering our community. We're providing self-defense classes, right? We're providing opportunities for them to know how to reach us. Not only do we have a typical 24-hour command center, we've transitioned out of the blue lights. So blue lights, it's old school, it's fixed, right? And if there is an incident, you have to be next to it and you have to push it. And there's a lot that goes with that. So we've brought this into play over the last 3 years. This is called a peace of mind device, in which you push it 3 times, you're on campus, it connects to our command center. So we know how to reach you. If you're off campus, it connects to the local PD. We want to be leaders in technology. Last but not least, it is continuing the relationships that we have, both with local and federal law enforcement agencies, and they've been very helpful. It provides us intelligence that we don't have on campus. And that's been vital in, one, closing cases, but more so from a proactive standpoint in stopping incidents before they arrive, before they occur. So those are a few of the things that we're doing at Howard.
Okay. Anything anyone wants to add before we move on to the next question? All right, I'm trying to make sure we stay on time and get through all the questions. Once an individual has been trespassed or removed from a campus, I know Chief Lyles mentioned the behavior intervention team. But once someone has been removed from campus, whether it's a student, an employee, a non-student, one of the concerns we've always dealt with is how, from a threat assessment perspective, what resources are in place to prevent that individual from coming back. And so what safeguards are there to a known threat who, again, may have at one time or may not have been a member of your campus community? So that's the question we present to each of you now.
Great. I can start off with that question. Thank you, Jack. When we trespass, whether it's a student or individual off our campus, and that's our particular campus, what we call our North Campus, that particular campus is gated. But if you go, if our South Campus is gated, but if you go north of our campus, it's within the openness of the community. So it's hard to trespass an individual from the public right of ways. However, we do trespass them from our properties that are connected to the public right of ways. But on our main campus, we because we have because of the entry points for those locations, we're able to manage that. We're able to manage that area better because in order to access the main campus, you have to come through our security booths, our security entrance. However, but in the openness of our campus, again, how do you trespass a person from a public right of way? So what we do with that, we make sure we get that information out, not only to our officers, but to our other partners, our external partners, our AUCC partners, as well as the City of Atlanta Police Department, because we want to make sure if that person does cause a threat to our community or to our campus, we want to make sure we have as many eyes as possible looking out for that particular individual to prevent that person from accessing our property or causing harm to anyone.
So here at North Carolina A&T, all of us know that individuals can be trespassed from campus for a host of reasons. Those reasons can range from petty crimes, minor disturbances, to your more serious crimes like assaults and even acts of violence. And so let me talk a little bit first about our ban process, our trespass process. So when we encounter an individual for whatever reason who needs to be banned or trespassed from campus, one of the things we do is we fill out the proper documentation to do so. And on this documentation, it has, date, time, location, purpose of the encounter, purpose of the ban, and for how long that person has been trespassed from a university property. We also make sure we take a photo of that individual and attach it to that. All right. And we maintain a ban notice file within our communication center. All right. So it's readily accessible by our dispatchers. We also maintain a file within our patrol area. And so the officers know very well who is banned, for what reason, and those things. And so as they encounter individuals on campus, one of the things they do consistently is ascertain whether or not is this person banned from campus. Of course, if they're found to be banned from campus, officers take appropriate actions. All right. So in the area of threat assessment, we actually have a threat assessment team and a CARES team. And so we share information. All right. So these teams comprise of individuals from throughout the spectrum of the university, whether it be faculty, staff, and the like. And it's headed by our threat assessment manager. All right. She actually sits atop of both of these teams. All right. To ensure continuity of operation, to ensure consistency of process. All right. These teams talk to one another. All right. And so how we keep individuals from coming back to our campus, we also deploy a process of where we, whenever we deal with somebody, whenever we ban someone, we do our intelligence, we do our homework on them. All right. All right. So when a person is banned, their vehicle, if they came to campus by way of vehicle, we put their vehicle in our LPR system, the flock system. All right. So that if they were to return back to our campus, or that vehicle at least, we would know that that banned vehicle, which could possibly contain the person who is banned, is in our footprint. So it would alert us in our communication center as well. And so we talk to our partners, the threat assessment team, the CARES team. We also talk with North Carolina ISAC, which is a subset of the SBI within North Carolina. All right. And we often lean on them as well to assist us in intelligence gathering and information sharing and the like. A really strong partner of ours is that of the Greensboro Police Department and their intelligence unit, the Guilford County Sheriff's Office and their intelligence unit. We regularly share information with one another, and they often give us the heads up if they see anything headed our way. And so it's an all-encompassing process. It's all team-oriented approach. Of course, individual, because we don't have gates and those things, there are always the chance of individuals who have been banned to be found on campus. But whenever it's discovered by us, we take immediate action and we handle it accordingly. And so it's all a work in progress.
I'll be brief. From my perspective, it's always your input is only as good as your output. So I won't dive into kind of more of the operational things. I think those are similar across the board. But I do think some low-hanging fruit is, where are you getting your information from? Does HR know when they terminate someone to let your team know? Do your student leaders, your student organizations know if something's not right, how to contact you and give you information? Do you speak with your deans and your building managers? Because they'll be the ones that see it first. It's all about information sharing, intelligence, and having force multipliers. I have 15,000 individuals on my campus. If they all have an inclination that I need information because something's off, it's very helpful. I also, last but not least, we make sure that we push out CSA training twice a year. It's a gentle reminder to everyone to let us know when something's not right, and it's been helpful.
All right, excellent. Thanks to all of you for your response to that question. Each of you certainly came from a little bit different perspective, but great answers. So our next question kind of ties in a little bit to our first question, and is how much of a variation is there from public institutions to private institutions to land-grant institutions in maintaining your obligation for an open campus? So we know among the HBCU LEA members, we know we have private institutions, public institutions, land-grant institutions. How does that obligation vary from your perspectives?
I'll start off. So I have worked at private institution as well as public institutions as well. And so, but what my experience has taught me is that it's not that much of a variation between the two. Like Chief Lyles just said, some of the processes, most of the processes are the same, or they're very, very similar in nature. The only difference that I saw between both entities was the fact that the private institution had gates around all of its property. All right. So it was much, much more difficult for individuals to access or gain access to the campus than it is at an open campus that don't have any gates. But in terms of the approach, in terms of the processes, in terms of the thinking of how we're going to keep our community safe, for me, it was relatively the same. It was the same approach. It was the same type of measures. We took the same type of measures at both institutions. And so just to answer that in a nutshell, the variations just really wasn't that much different.
I agree, Chief Cherry. Being Clark Atlanta University, AUCC, all of our schools are private. Like I said, we don't have the leisure of being, you might have one school that's gated, but the majority of the schools within the AUCC are open, especially Clark Atlanta University. But when you look at how do a private institution keep their campus safe compared to a public institution, I don't think there's much difference. There might be a restriction on what we can do at a private institution versus a public institution. Give you a perfect example. You know, majority of Georgia is a right to carry state, so therefore we restrict any firearms from coming over on our campus by our students, faculty, our employees. You know, it's a no weapons campus. That means that you can be on the public right away with carrying a weapon. Once you cross over onto our properties, then you restrict it from having that weapon on our property at all. So that's one of the variations. But when it comes to keeping our campus safe, I think we all share the same. Chief Lyle talked about technology. We all utilize technology, increasing the camera surveillance on our campuses to make sure we have those extra eyes. Not only that, but our visibility. We do the same to make sure that we have more manpower on our campuses to be ready to respond in the event that something should occur. So when it comes to protecting our campuses, there's no variation other than one is a private and there's one public. The public might have, like you said, available tax dollars that's more readily available to a public institution versus a private institution. So that's, to me, that's the biggest one. But other than that, when it comes to safety, we all are doing the same.
From my perspective, I think it comes down to resources and being very judicious in the amount of resources you have and how to apply those, where to put them. Do you put them in human capital? Do you put it in technology? Do you put it in campaigns, initiatives? It's just spending the money wisely. Howard University is a private school, but we have city streets that are the veins throughout the campus. I also think red tape, right? Private institutions, although they have to deal with city government, municipal area, I think as it relates to being private and how you manage and run a building or being able to pivot to a specific issue or crisis at the drop of a dime, I think that's been helpful. With some of the concerns that we've seen, we've been able to come up with a strategy where we're able to address issues rather quickly.
Okay, so for our next question, we want to talk about protest groups on campus. And we know that covers a wide range. We can have individuals who are peacefully protest. Sometimes we can have planned protests, spontaneous protests, sit-ins, things of that nature. Sometimes there's a tendency for violence, sometimes not. And sometimes these events are also problematic for our students or members of our community. So they may be upset by the content of the message. So the broad question is, what are the best practices that you have found for handling protests, whether spontaneous or planned on your campus? And what are some strategies that you've used to help you mitigate that potential for violence?
Okay, well, I'll start off. I won't go through everything that we do because I'm sure both chiefs would be able to chime in with some things that are very, very similar. But I do wholeheartedly believe that the best way to handle protests is by building meaningful partnerships within the community, within your community beforehand. The time to build those partnerships is not in a time of crisis, but in a time of peace and a time of harmony and those things. And so one of the things that we are very, very intentional about doing is getting to know our SGA, getting to know student clubs and organizations, right? Getting to know them immediately so that they can understand who we are. We can look for common ways to achieve our mission, as well as help them and assist them in doing what they need to do throughout the campus community as well. We build that partnership. We invest up front so that in a time of crisis, they know who we are already. They know our heart. They know our mission. We have built those relationships and forged those bonds, and so we understand one another. Now, when it comes to protests, whether they be planned protests or spontaneous protests, we do all those things that everyone else does. You know, we make contact with the group. We try to understand the purpose of the protest. We identify their list of demands. We offer assistance because we want to also always make sure that we maintain a posture of allowing individuals to peacefully protest because it's their constitutional right. So we try to assist them. We try to assist them by offering resources. We try to assist by maybe route planning, whatever. But first and foremost, we try to educate them along the way as we provide that assistance. We want to make sure that they don't allow some rogue faction to hijack their cause. And we articulate that to them so that they can be on the lookout for anyone who would try to hijack. And so with that, I'm going to stop there and I'm going to allow my comrades, my friends to also chime in.
So Chief Williams, I'll jump in real quick. When I arrived here at Howard, I had a large force, and most of them were warriors, right? They were mission driven, but they were warriors. And very quickly, I realized kind of the temperature here on campus called for a different type of sworn officer. We needed guardians, someone where safety, student safety, campus safety was a priority and not just mitigating threats, right? So we found a good balance. It's been intentional through our hiring. We train on protests and large group activities often. Howard University, we want students to voice their opinions. First Amendment activity is part of our fabric, right? At universities, colleges across the nation, some of the biggest discussion or critical thinking areas in our history has started at university. So we implore our students to dive in first, but we also lend a hand in providing best practices on how to do it safely. We've strengthened our policy around it. We have no issue with voicing opinions, expressing yourselves, long as it doesn't present a challenge in operations or brings threats, violence to our campus. That's kind of where we have a line, and we communicate that early and often. I also think intelligence is important as well. Where are you getting your information? How are you fact checking? How are you following up to ensure you're able to find a healthy balance where individuals can express themselves, but the university can continue to function and serve its mission in making sure we're providing a safe environment, a learning environment to our students.
Great. And the only thing I would add that they both mentioned, you know, they have a right to protest and the freedom of speech. We never want to interfere with that. And also that communication is so important, as he mentioned, as Chief Cherry mentioned, with our SGA organizations on our campuses. It's so important for us to make sure we have those relationships established in advance, rather than trying to create those relationships when something do occur. Being proactive, not only when it comes to having protests on our campus, but anything. I always say here at Clark Atlanta University, we don't police our students, we police our campus. And as long as we're doing that, making sure that our students know that they're a part of the department, just like we are part of the campus community, those relationships help when it comes to them getting ready to voice their opinion about anything, because we can come to the table and talk about it before it escalates into anything else.
Okay, so thank you again. Great responses. So my next question relates to that topic, but just takes it a little bit further. So when you have those incidents that do start peaceably, then sometimes whether it's through outsiders who come onto your campus and hijack the event in the manner that Chief Cherry described, being very attentive to and working to prevent that. If that happens, or in some ways tensions escalate, if you have a group of counter protesters, there may become a certain point where what was a peaceful protest is now a heavy potential for violence. It's a disruption to campus, and at some point you may have to make a decision about ending the protest, asking the individuals to leave. I know in a lot of PWIs, or some PWIs that I've worked at, it's been the official responsibility and policy of, say, a dean of students, maybe the provost is the one who makes that decision that is now unlawful assembly or an event that needs to discontinue. So my question to each of you is, in your environments, how does that process look like? What resources or guidelines are in place? And how is that decision made and executed when that event reaches that point?
Okay, I'll start first with that. So we all know that free speech is governed by time, place, and manner. Okay, and if a protest were to turn violent or disruptive, that will really go against the university's business and operations and those things. So a person's free speech cannot disrupt university business, nor can it stop the educational process. All right. And so if those two things began to take shape here at North Carolina A&T, we are always in constant communication with university officials throughout a protest on campus. So we are giving them updates on what is taking place. Usually, and I'll say this, since I've been here as chief of police over the past 2 years, we've seen several protests, but none of which we believe needed to be intervened and shut down. Okay. I'll say this: if someone has to make the call to restrict a protest, to dismantle a protest, that call will come from my office based on the intelligence that we have and what we're seeing on the ground. All right. Usually the chancellor will support whatever decision I make as the chief of police. And then we will just kind of step through that process. What I didn't speak about earlier is in terms of our resources, right? So while we are helping facilitate a peaceful protest, on the back end, I've already contacted my Greensboro resources, the chief of police, the sheriff, who usually agree to have resources on standby. So I do that on the back end. On the back end, I keep the university informed as to all of the events leading up to and all the way through the protests. And so we have these resources readily available so that if it turns left or it takes a turn for the worse, we can respond rather quickly. But like I said earlier, usually I'm the one to make that call based on what we're seeing on the ground, usually with the support of the administration. And for that, I'm grateful.
And I'm sure Chief Lau probably have the same thing to say, that based upon what Chief Sherry added regarding this question, we all practice the same. We all have, if it's long as it's orderly, we will, like I said, freedom of speech, we encourage it here. And that communication with our students, and because of the relationship we have not only with our local partners, but with our federal and state partners as well. If a situation ever presents itself where it is becoming disorderly, out of our control, we will always utilize our additional resources with our other partners, our external partners, to make sure we maintain the sanity and the safety of our campuses.
Absolutely. At Howard University, we plan for the worst and hope for the best. Our recommendations, but it's a shared decision, and there's this discussion and de-escalation and all of those before a decision is made.
Okay, so our final question is, how do you handle hate groups or known threats and prevent them from coming onto your campus, disrupting activities, things of that nature? Unfortunate that the environment that we're in today, that we still have to deal with that. But I know specifically each of you and HBCU, LEA, were very heavily involved in addressing the previous bomb threats to HBCUs, but we know there are hate groups who would intend to disrupt campuses. And how do you kind of prepare for it and deal with that?
Okay, I certainly,
Chief Chair,
okay.
you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, and so how do we deal with hate groups? We take the same approach. It's intelligence gathering. And so I have a social media team here within the police department that consistently checks, monitors, take a look at what's out there. We also work very closely with our local law enforcement partners who consistently share information with us. Their intelligence units are always looking at those things. And so if anything were to come to our attention or to the attention of our local partners, we all get together and we talk about it, all right? We share information. We also, in times past, we've brought in the FBI also. We've brought in ATF also. It all depends on the nature and the size and the scope of the threat that is presented to us by whatever group, okay? And so we all work together, we share information. There have been times where we had a situation brewing sometime last semester where we had an individual to come to our campus just armed with an improvised explosive device. He was armed with multiple handguns, rifles, and other forms of weaponry and those things. Thankfully, through the swift actions of our officers, we were able to take that person into custody rather quickly. And he was arrested and charged appropriately. But what happened around this whole situation was all of our partners came and they converged and they provided assistance to the tune of just providing background intelligence on this individual, what group he's a part of, what was his steps before he came to North Carolina A&T. Our local law enforcement partners went out to this individual's home, spoke with his family, and all of those things. And so all hands are on deck, but information sharing and partnership is key. And so these are the things we do to make sure that we kind of keep out those hate groups or anybody that would dare threaten the health and safety of our campus. We try to identify it beforehand, and we start taking steps to mitigate it before it even touch our footprint. We can't do that alone, and so we definitely value the partnership of all of our partners.
I think our threat landscape is, or I know our threat landscape is very different than it was just 5 years ago, where we spent much of our time dealing with student disputes and domestic violence issues, drug and alcohol, vagrants on campus, things of that nature. Now we're dealing with, hate crimes and threats of that, and ransomware attacks, both local and international. So I guess my recommendation to the group listening would be, we have to understand it's a very different landscape, and we have to be diverse in where we're getting information and the resources that we have or are able to apply to specific type of incidents. We had 9 bomb threats in the last 18 months, right? That's not normal. And I think having that communication with your community where it's not where they're not desensitized to these type of things is important. I think having counselors and the student health involved is very important. I think as it relates to how do you stop it, yes, you want to be proactive, but at the end of the day, you just want to make it hard, right? You want these threat actors to know you come to Howard, it's going to be hard on you, right? We're going to make it hard. We touch base with local and federal partners like many of us would, but I think you will find out more information internally if you have the relationships that are in place. I don't think this affects HBCUs only. I know it doesn't. I think this affects us all, and we're seeing it. I think us building better communication between universities would be helpful. I know when we had our 9 bomb threats, I probably was on the phone with Chief Williams and Chief Cherry and other HBCUs more than I ever have been, just sharing information. And we did that also with our local consortium. Consortiums are a powerful use of information. All the schools in the area would come together and just have discussions. We do that on weather. We do that on specific threats. I think it's important to share information amongst universities in your area.
And as you can hear the same thing when you hear from Chief Cherry and Chief Loud, you hear communication, you hear partnerships, you hear collaboration, and we can't do this alone. It takes a community in order for us to make sure we're providing a safe environment for our students to learn and our faculty and staff members to work. And when it comes to anyone trying to come on our campuses, whether to protest illegally or cause harm to our environment, it takes all of those things in order to make sure that at the end of the day that we've accomplished the task that we've been asked to do in these positions, as well as for our communities that we serve.
All right, excellent. Again, great responses. So we're at the top of the hour. We've got 3 questions that came in from our audience. I want to hit those very quickly. If you have to go, I understand, but we're going to try to get some quick responses to these. So our first question is, what creative ways are you attracting students to talks and meetings? If one of you or all of you would like to jump in with a quick response to that. So how are you getting the students involved and getting them to attend the various talks and meetings that you have?
Well, you make it, with here, we talk about, you heard me mention a word about, we don't police our campus. We don't police our students, we police our campus. Proactive enforcement, Chief Cherry spoke about it earlier, to make sure that our students understand that this department does not exist without their input, without them being partners. So knowing that they have a voice makes it a big difference with us. So I always encourage our students to make sure that you at least exercise that voice, that freedom of speech like you have to exercise with something else, exercise it within our department as well, so that you can make sure that we're doing what you all require of us, but expect of us as law enforcement officers as well.
And I don't know how creative this is, but we find that if you give the students something, give them some coffee, give them some food, give them a little gift, a parting gift, that has always worked well for us. If we just give them something, that usually entices them to come.
And on our end, we have a student safety task force, and I think that's a fantastic way to download on issues that they're seeing. And then secondly, we leverage their voice. Students want to hear from other students. So if you get student leaders buy-in on an initiative or a campaign, and they're the ones spearheading the communication, it usually lands on a softer ear.
Okay, excellent. Second question, and Chief Cherry, you somewhat addressed this question when you were talking about threat assessment. But this question says, I work in threat assessment at a PWI. And it asks, does each of you employee threat assessment roles within your agencies? And again, Chief Cherry, I know you talked about the roles a little bit, but I don't know if you want to expand on those threat assessment roles, or Chief Lyles, Chief Williams, if you want to weigh in on it.
So I'll say just a few things about that. So again, we have what is called an Aggie Cares Committee, which is made up of key constituents throughout the university from most of the disciplines around the university, whether it be counseling, whether it be student discipline, whether it be from housing. We have a member of the police department, just the different disciplines from the academic side. All of them are on that CARES committee. Then we have, and the purpose of the CARES committee is to very quickly identify a student who could be in crisis, someone who may be struggling. We get this information by the incident reports that's generated by the police department, by reports generated by housing or other factions throughout the university. Once this person is identified, this committee comes together, generate a case file with the goal of providing wraparound services for this person so that they can be whole and be able to function within the university community. So usually it hits our Aggie Cares Committee first. There's always the potential for it to go from the Cares Committee to the Threat Assessment Committee. It doesn't necessarily have to start that way based on the nature of the incident, but we have that Threat Assessment Committee. Some of the goals of the Threat Assessment Committee are the same. However, it all depends on how egregious of nature this threat is. There have been times where we've had to manage an individual out of the university setting, away from the university, based on their behaviors, based on the threats that they've made, and those type of things. And so our threat assessment manager, she is, again, sits atop of both of these committees for continuity purposes and information sharing purposes. And I think she does a really, really good job in managing these both type of incidents to deploy the strategies that we want from both points of this committee. So I hope that answers your question a little bit. I'll lean on my partners to chime in where they may.
Well, Howard, we love our committees as much as the next university. Of course, we have our BIT team, Behavioral Intervention Team. I sit on that, in which we follow best practices. So we follow NBETA standards, and we go through the rubric, and we put individual cases, and we look at each one. We also have a CARES unit, and then also a threat team. That team is primarily spearheaded out of our department, Department of Public Safety. That's kind of a breakdown for us.
All right. And then our final question, and Chief Lyles, this final question is specifically for you. And it relates to what you mentioned about the peace of mind service. So let me, and actually let me just interject here for just a minute. One of the things I appreciate about CriticalArc, and when these webinars are done, it's not a sales pitch about their product. I know Chief Cherry is a customer of CriticalArc. I know Chief Cherry mentioned Flock in their ALPRs. The number of institutions or certainly have found success with. But when CriticalArc does this a webinar, they don't make it about a particular product or what have you. That's one of the things that I certainly appreciate. Although their technology has been very beneficial, but this question relates to the peace of mind service that you mentioned, Chief Lyles. And it said, is there a website, who provides that device, and who's eligible to receive the device on your campus? So again, that question was very specifically for you.
So team, I'm sorry to pull out the prop. I don't often do that as a panelist, but it's been helpful here on campus. I think oftentimes a community wants something tangible that they can hold, something that they can feel. We receive 5 to 10 activations a week. Oftentimes, many of them are just trying the device out, but it works well, and it works across the nation. It's available to everyone on our campus, all 15,000 members. We have been working with the company for a few years just to test it out and proof of concept, and it's worked well. The name of it is PALM, Peace of Mind Device, and you should be able to find that by Googling it, but I can also share information offline if appropriate.
All right, excellent. So again, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thanks to all of you very much. You provided some great answers, and I hate to put you on the spot, but I certainly would probably say that you would be open to any follow-up questions from any of our attendees who want to reach out to each of you specifically about anything you mentioned today, or had any follow-up questions for you. Any final comments from any of you before we conclude the meeting?
I would just like to say thank you to CriticalArc for hosting this, and also to our partners, IACLEA, as well, for partnering with us for this webinar, to make sure we not only prepare our communities, our HBCUs, but make sure we share information. It's not about one person or one particular school, but we're all in the business of campus safety. And again, I want to thank you all for allowing us to come together for this opportunity.
Chief Lyles, any final comments?
Chief Williams said it best. We look forward to collaborating. I think in this threat environment, we have to be able to share information and best practices. So thank you for the opportunity. I hope this time was well worthwhile.
Chief Cherry?
Thank you. So I would say the same thing. Thank you so much just for this opportunity to share some of the things that we've done to facilitate safety on our campus. But I would also say this here, and I think all of my panelists will also agree. If some of you have deployed some of these strategies, or some strategies that we've listed have not been discussed by us, please give us that information too, because we want to know the great things that you're doing too, to make sure that your campus is safe, because they may prove to be useful for us as well. And so just information share that with us as well, so that we can all be one strong, big unit in the cause of safety. Thank you so much.
All right. So finally, again, as you all said, thanks to CriticalArc for making this happen today. We really appreciate it. Thanks to HBCU, LEA, and IACLEA, two great organizations, provide a ton of benefits to its members. Appreciate everyone being in attendance, and look forward to seeing the three of you in person soon, instead of seeing you through the Zoom. Everyone have a great day.
Take care.